Hey guys, in this video we're going to go over differentials. This is Differentials 101. Okay guys, this is going to be a pretty cool video because in this one we're going to go over several differentials, and this one here is a Typhon 6S center diff. We've got a GS Racing Storm, which is a gas-powered 8-scale buggy, which is similar to the Typhon but gas-powered. Here's the center diff out of that. We also have the rear differential out of that same buggy, and it's pretty similar in size. The neat thing is internally these are all about the same. So in this video we're going to go ahead and we're going to explain what diffs are, why we need them, how to tune them, and what oils do what in each differential. And the cool part is what we're really trying to show you here is most of these are built the same way. Getting them out of the car is one thing. Follow the manual, it'll get you there. But once you get it out and you get it in this form, which is the casing with the differential in it, once you get it to there, that's where this is going to take over, and we're going to go over the internals, what you need to do to put them together, service them, and how you choose your oils. Now, how you choose your oils is going to really depend on your driving style, and that's really what it is. If you like the dirt and you like aggressive, then you're going to set it up one way. If you like to be on the pavement and you like it to turn real sharp and nimbly, then you're going to set it up another way. And the thing is, even if I told you what I do internally on my car's differentials, you may hate it, because my driving style, I set my diff oils to suit me, and I like aggressive, I like lots of grunt, and I don't care if it's squirrely, I just handle it if I can. And that's my style. However, if you're fairly new to the sport, you don't have a lot of time behind the wheel, you may want a little less aggressive oil in your system, and that's something that each person is going to have to dial in for themselves. The cool thing about it is once you get a car dialed into you, you'll be a little more in tune with the car. It'll do what you want it to do, it'll brake when you want it to brake, and it'll skid the tires the way you expect them to skid, because you've gone ahead and you've dealt with the diff oils and made it respond properly. Come into a corner and pin it, and it'll do what you expect it to do, because one, it's set up for your driving style, and two, you become tuned with the car after a short time. So it's one of those things to where it's going to take a little time to get these diff oils all sorted out, and you can go online and you can ask all these other people how they do theirs, and that's cool. But keep in mind, driving style plays a big part. If the squirreliness of the car is a little much for you to handle, you may hate it. If when you pin it, it fries one tire, the tires balloon up and you pop tires all the time, you may hate that too, and that is a direct reflection of diff oils. What I have here is the Storm differential, and this one is pretty plain Jane and it's wide open. I don't know what's in there, haven't had it open yet, but it's wide open. It feels really light. It would take no problems to go ahead and spin this one out. So this one will pull apart. We've got the center differential, and this is another one that feels wide open, and I really don't understand that. I mean, it shouldn't be like this. This is sloppy. I don't know. We'll pull that one apart. However, I've had the Typhon one apart, and this one, I've gone ahead and stuffed some earplugs in this one, and it's not locked up completely. You can turn it. See there? You can turn it, but it doesn't like it a whole lot. So it definitely drives both of the out drives. So you got your ring gear here, differential here, and your out drives are here and here. These out drives, when it throws power to the center gear here, it drives these pretty darn evenly. And the beautiful part of that is you're going to get equal power to the front wheels and the rear wheels when this thing torques up. Now the problem with that is if you've got one that's wide open, okay, and you get a little bit of different, traction front to back, when the motor powers this ring gear, it's going to try and send the power evenly here. Now, if your back wheels have traction, and of course this sitting in the car, and you throttle it, it's going to tip back because all the weight's going to set on the back of the car. When that happens, it's going to lighten the load in the front. This isn't going to spin. It's going to turn very little because the traction's back here, lack of traction's up here, and it's going to overspin this one. Now the thing is these are geared inside. What that means is when these turn evenly, and that would be this one, when these turn evenly, it's 1 to 1. Each time the ring gear makes 1 revolution, both axles make the same revolution, 1 to 1. So it turns as 1, okay? However, when you have an open differential, now that is where everything changes, because you would think it would turn 1 to 1, right? It's one big thing. But when you lock down one side with traction, now it turns this one at 2 to 1. See how that overspins? Now you're turning this one twice as fast as it's supposed to spin, which causes ballooning of the tires, and it can rupture tires. Also, you don't get the power to the back. When this is open, it'll bleed all the power. So let's say you have, I want to say 7 pounds of traction in the back. In the front, when this car lifts, you get 1 pound of traction. Okay, so you got 7 to 1. The car lifts. This is going to break traction in the front. It's going to send all of the power to that front end, and you're going to get 1 pound of thrust in the back because it will equalize this out. So when you get 1 pound of traction in the front, you're only going to get 1 in the back because it'll bleed off the excess in the front. So when this turns, you won't have the dig in the back that you really want. You're going to just sort of, that's going to sort of come in nice and slow, and the fronts are going to spin like crazy. That is a direct result of your diff oil, okay? So when you stiffen this up, like this one, yes, it does turn, and I'm not really cranking hard on it, so it's not locked up. So when you take an impact, this can absorb some of that. However, when you go to accelerate, even though it can overspin the front just a little, this doesn't let it spin very much. So instead of losing 6 pounds to the front from 7 to 1, you might lose 1 pound, maybe, depending on how that works. So that's the basic theory of how these things work, at least in the center diff application. Okay, in the rear differential, now this is a little bit different, and there's a couple ways you can explain this one. The rear differential has one issue that is kind of debated between me and my friends, and what it comes down to is some people like the wheels to, let me show you. Okay, this is a Losi laser nut, and it has the stock diff. Now see how easily that turns? I'm not even trying. It's like this thing is wide open, and it comes out of the factory that way. But it does drive really good. It's got, the tires give it pretty good traction, and it's one finger. See that? No problems. Now, the problem with that is, that when you come into a corner and you traction up, say, the left side of your car, and the car leans, you're going to lose traction on the right side. And again, the differential doesn't care where it bleeds the power. It'll bleed all the power to the weakest point. So on the car, when it shifts, it's going to bleed all that extra power off on the inside and limit the amount of thrust it gives the traction side. Now, that has 2 benefits. One, when you get in the corner and you bleed off on the inside, the outside tire will maintain traction and keep a corner going because it won't slide out. Okay, so it won't drift nearly as easy or as controllably. However, if you run a locked differential, and let's see, here it is. This is the Traxxas UDR, and it's a little bit heavy, so we'll do it this way. This one doesn't have a differential. It is locked up, and it doesn't matter what you do. You pin this, and it drives both tires the same. Now, the advantage to that is when you come into a corner and you pin it, it's going to break those tires loose easier because when it rolls around a corner, it's going to try and skid one tire because the outer turn is wider than the inner turn, so the outer tire is going to travel farther than the inside tire. When that happens, it's going to automatically skid some of the tire because it can't turn a corner with two tires locked together. It has to break something loose. So it steers a little funny on the asphalt, but when you get it in the dirt, this thing is stunning. It comes around so easily and it's so controllable when it kicks around. That's one style of driving. Now, I don't know exactly what your style is going to be, but for me, I really love the way the UDR handles. But then again, I also love the way the laser nut runs. So I'm kind of tossed on that, but it also comes down to car. The UDR is definitely heavier than the laser nut, so that adds something to it. So when you're working your driving style, you kind of have to keep an eye on what you want to use the car for, the weight of the car, the size of the car, and so forth, and then tune your diffs accordingly. That's just kind of what you need to do. So let's get down here and break a couple of these apart and show you what's inside. And what we're going to do here first is let's take the center differential from the Storm and pull it apart. So let's do that real quick. So this one, like most differentials, this has 4 screws. These are older ones, so I'm using a screwdriver, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's all there is involved in that. So we'll go ahead and take these screws out and we'll get ready to crack this thing open. And always use something to capture the fluid because, like I say, we don't know what's in here, so let's get something down that will capture that fluid. Alright, here we go. So what we have here is we've got all 4 screws are out. So now it's time to pull this thing apart. So let's get right down on top of this and we'll show you what that is. Okay, so to get a look down inside of this, let's pull this thing apart and we just pop the top off. Ooh, whoa. That thing is dry as a bone. Look at that. Dry as a bone. Well, it'll still work for demonstration purposes, but looking down inside of here, look at that. There's literally no fluid in there at all, and this came out of the factory that way. So on the first half here, we're going to go ahead and pull this apart just to show you what this is. And like I say, most differentials are built this way. They don't have anything complicated inside them. These little hubs right here, they lift right off. Okay, so it's got the little drive spot right there that this little pin goes through. So we're going to set this down here and we'll push this pin through. Let's do it another way so you can see what I'm doing here. Let's do this. So these will help get it so you can watch this happen. So now you get that off. Now that's the drive pin and it goes right in there when you're running through here. Now we're going to go ahead and leave the gasket on that runs around the perimeter here. That's a nice little gasket and it's undamaged, or at least it appears to be. So we're going to leave that in there. Now this will push right through. See that? And there is your outdrive cup. Easy peasy, nothing to it. Now, since we have this, we can get the bearing off because the outdrive cup is gone. On the inside, ooh, that came loose. Nice. So there is the gasket. And inside of here, there they are. Inside of here, you have an O-ring and a bushing. And that's all that's in this part of it. Okay, so you've got, if you're going to go and change this gear, then this is the part that you'll have to take apart and put that in. Now, when you reassemble this, and we're going to go ahead and put this right back together, you put the O-ring and then the bushing in, get it in place, like so. So now the O-ring is trapped in there, and the job of the O-ring is to keep the oil that's supposed to be on the inside from draining out. So now, before we can put the outdrive cup on, we have to remember to put the bearing back on the outside, okay? Because once this is in place, you can't Now we'll go ahead and slide this back through, and you want to hold that bushing down as you do this, like so. Make sure the fit is good. Now we're going to go ahead and grab that pin again, like so, and find the hole. There it is, and fish it right back through the hole. Just like that, easy peasy. And then the drive gear, line it up and drop it right back over the top. Now the problem here is you still have to get this thing on there, and so we'll just slip it right over the top, line up the holes, and we should be good to go. Now, slightly more complicated is this section here. And this one is still pretty easy to get apart if you use something to get down inside there. So we have a little star cluster right here. And I don't think I can get it out all at once, so I'm going to try one beam at a time. There we go. There's one set of planetaries. And there's the other set of planetaries. And if you look down inside there, we have another one of those little gears in there. Okay. Now when they're coated in oil, they can be a little bit difficult to get loose from the bottom because they kind of get stuck down. We'll get that in a minute. But what we want to look at here is these shafts here. If you look on the end, it's got a bush or shim right here. And that shim has two jobs. One, it helps with spacing, so it keeps things spaced the way they need to be within the differential. But also, this is a friction point. What that means is that will rub on this plastic and allow this gear to turn inside of it without wearing through the plastic. So it adds longevity and it shims it so that you can get the right spacing so things hold together nicely. Also, if you can see this, see that little flat spot? There's a flat spot there, and both of these have one. There's the one on this side. And what that does is that allows these to interlock like this. Ooh, easy, easy. There we go. They interlock like that. And when they're locked together, they're the same elevation. So it makes them flat. Ooh. It makes them flat so that they run in the same spot within the differential itself. So that being said, let's get this out of the inside and see what we see. So let's see if we can get a hold of this. Oh, hey, nice. Came right off. Now, this is the exact same piece as that. So they're a set, they're the same. Now, if you look down in here, you'll see another one of those little pins in the bottom. See that down in there? You cannot get that out. What I mean is, it's going to hit the sides everywhere you try and get it out. If you turn the casing here, you'll find a little grub screw right there. And that little grub screw, is this the right size? Yeah. Okay, that little grub screw needs to come out. And the reason that has to come out is that's the port that pin comes through. It's not for adjusting your oil. It's not an adjustment for the diff itself. It is simply an access port. Stop it. It's simply an access port. So you line this up with that. So you get them lined up together like that. See if I can get that there. Pull this back and run it through that hole. There we go. And now we can get it out. It's just that easy. It can be really frustrating if you don't know what that little hole is for, but it's an access point to get that pin out. And then of course, once the pin's out, it's the same assembly as the other side. This goes through, the bearing can come off, and in here, in the same position, you have one bushing that is covering one O-ring. Now, I don't really think it's necessary to pull this out. You watched me do that side. It is exactly the same thing down in here. So let's go ahead and reassemble. Put this in. Of course, you have to do the bearing first because when you push this through, you won't be able to get that on there later. So we'll go ahead and line that up. Now, on the inside, hold your finger on that until you get through the bushing. Then you won't poke everything through on the inside. Take that. And then just slide it down with a tool, and there you have it, just like that. Now, you also have to find this little hole, that's the indexer, and you have to see where the hole is on the inside. So right now I have them lined up, So fish this one through that hole, and that'll get it inside. Grab it from the inside and fish it through the next hole. Just like that. Get it in the middle. Now it's in there again. See that down in there? And we can now add this component. So let's grab it. And we're going to line it up this way and drop it right on. There we go. Popped right in place. So now that's back together. And really, guys, that's all that's involved in these things. And 90% of your diffs are just like this. They may have a slightly different block on the side where these things attach, but you're going to have 4 planetaries going around the drive gears on the edges, and that's pretty much that. So when you go to build this and put this back in, you want to make sure that you keep your flat spot up on your first one. Okay, flat spot up, oh, nice and careful. Here we go. And we're going to slide that right in here. Nice. So now that one's in there. Now we got to do sink it. Turn that gear just a little bit so they settle in there. Like that. So that's good. Now we'll put the next one in. And on this one, make sure that flat spot is down, because it's going to marry up to that one. So flat spot down. Like that. And fish it right down on top of the other one. Easy. That one got a little out of pocket, but there you have it. It went in pretty good. Make sure you turn it. That will seat all of these. So now it works like it's supposed to. Of course, it's bone dry. So that's not okay. Please don't forget to put your grub screw back in to plug this hole, or you're going to leak oil all over your car. And that would be unpleasant. Now, you're not torquing this. This is just a plug, so run it in until it's flat, so it doesn't snag on anything. All it's supposed to do is keep the oil from running out of the differential. You don't want to run it through till it grabs anything. Everything needs to move nice and smoothly. Okay, so that's that. Now, if we're going to use oil, we can use, and I don't want to waste any good oil on this, so what we're going to do is we're just going to use some basic oil that I have here, and we're going to put some in here. So the way we do this is you fill your diff with oil, like so. And this is really runny, guys. I know it's runny. That's just the oil I'm using for demonstration. See how it moves in there? Notice how it climbs over the gears. See how that works? That is the way it's supposed to work. Now, in order to make this diff stiffer, you use a thicker oil, and it takes more energy to climb over the gears. So as you do that, that's just kind of how that works. See how it's starting to work down in there? That means it's getting underneath that bottom plate. Now, you have this much room in there. So you don't want to overfill it because it'll boil all over the place. So with that being said, all I got to do now is line this up with the holes. So get this little gasket lined up. There we go. There we go. There are the holes for the gasket. And now we just put this together. Like so. And that looks pretty good. There's the holes. Now we're all lined up. We can screw this thing back together. Then we'll torque them down, and of course when you build these, you want to torque them down in the crosshatch formation. You don't want to do it straight around in a circle because it will cause problems with seating. So now that we've got everything down in here, we're going to go ahead and torque this one down a little bit till it just grabs. That's all we want to do. Then skip over and go straight across and do that one. Then halfway back. And what we're doing is we're doing it in kind of a star formation the way you would your car when you change a tire. Okay, so there we have it, guys. And with the lubrication in there, it made it spin even easier if that's at all possible. So, you know, it's one of those things. You want to put some heavier stuff in it. There is literally nothing there, guys. It's going to transfer every bit of energy right through it. But notice how the O-rings keep the fluid inside, and it's not leaking all over the place. So there you have it. That's what the basic differential has inside of it. And you're going to find that they all have about the same setup. I've had this one apart, and it is the same thing. On the sides, it has slightly different loading blocks that the pins go through. Other than that, it's the same. Same thing with this one. Everything inside of this is the same as what I just showed you over there. I bet on it. Let's pull it apart real quick and see. I got those loosened up, but let's see what's inside of it. I'm betting money this thing is the same. So let's look. And this one had issues. We stripped this differential out, so it's junk. But it's stripped only on the ring gear here. It's only stripped out there. The insides should still be in good shape. There we go. Come on. There we go. Oh, yeah. So GS sends them out dry. And if you take a look, it's the same. The only difference that I can see on this one is it's got a different type of ring gear on it for being inside the differential and not a straight up one for being in the center. That's it. It appears to have the same center gears, everything. It's identical. So that should take some of your pressure off, guys. They're the same, I mean, inside and out. The one anomaly that I'm aware of is the EXP. Okay guys, so far so good. So you can see inside these differentials, they're all built about the same way. Now I know there's a lot of different differentials out there, and I'm sure I've missed one or two that are a little odd. But if you look in your manual, you'll see that they all come apart about the same way. And your manual will help you get all your parts together in the right order when you go to reassemble. So don't forget that these cars come, like I say, those differentials right there that came out, those were bone dry from the factory. They probably squirted just a little something in there and turned them loose. And upon a little more inspection, I noticed there were metal shavings down in those because of lack of lubricant. So when you get your car, don't assume that there's fluid in there. They're assembled in quantities, and they may or may not. I've pulled a couple of Arma Diffs apart that had very little lube in there, and I've pulled a couple of them apart that had a pretty good amount of it. So always check. If you have the time, dig the thing apart and have a look at it. It's always good to be sure. Okay guys, so that should give you a basic understanding of the general differential and what its purpose is within the car. I hope this video was helpful. However, we're not quite done yet. I do have a video that is upcoming, however, and it is, if you've seen this torn apart on the bench, this is the rear differential out of a Kraton EXP, and this is one of the ones that are the exception. And what I mean by that is, this is the first differential I've seen that comes with limited slip, and that is brought about by these three little discs, and there's two sets of these in each one. Here you go. I hope you can see those. Okay, so those are the drive discs. These are what give you that limited slip, and in that video we'll explain how that works, and we'll take this thing apart and build it for you so you can see how to disassemble and reassemble it. However, we're not quite done here yet. We need to get into oils and show you what they are. Now I've got a small collection of them back here, and they range from 10,000 to 500,000 K. And the thing is when you go for your oils, if you want a good open diff, I mean basically a wide open diff, you want to go for something around 10K, and that usually works pretty well in the front as a starter platform, as into where you want to place that oil in the car. So let's take this one as 10K. This is going to be our 10K. That right there is front diff. Now this isn't a recommendation that you use these oils. This is simply to show you placement for what I've found works best for me. So if you use 10K in the front, and we'll just use all three of these. So these are the Traxxas diff lubes, and this one's 30 and this one's 50. Okay, so if you're going to place them in the car, I find that if you place 10 in the front, you're going to put the 50 in the center. And that's going to give you more even drive front to back. Then you'll put the 30 in the rear. So if you'll notice, the oils in the front are lighter than the oils in the rest of the car. Now, I know you guys, you're going to go, well, I run mine another way. Perfect. Do that. However, for those of you that want to give this a try, this works for me. And I've been doing this a really long time, but that doesn't mean I'm super at it either. That just means I've done it a really long time, so I've had time to kind of understand how this works. So for me, I like a really tight center diff, and it doesn't have to be locked. It just has to be tight enough to not balloon the front tires so much when you pin it. From a dead stop, if you pin your car and it lifts the front a little bit and balloons the tires, they can spin, but if they balloon really big, your oil in the mid is a little bit on the weak side, because that, although it's cool to watch, it does destroy tires over time because they can only stretch so many times before they finally rupture. And if you're buying tires, that's cool. You know, if that makes you smile and laugh and you can do that all day long, you're not doing it wrong. However, if you want to limit that, you want a little stiffer oil here in the middle. Now, on the rear end of the car, if you come into a corner and your car pushes, so it doesn't quite turn the corner the way you want it to, you're holding more traction in the rear. And the problem with that is, if you have a light oil in the rear, okay, this is the light stuff right here. If you have a light oil in the rear, it's going to allow one tire to get traction and it's going to overspin the other one. And when it leans, and that's going to hold a line, which means the traction in the back can cause the front of the car to push. And that makes it hard to corner at times. So if you take and you put your lighter fluid in the front because you want the front to do that, when it leans, you want to have one tire maintain good traction. So light oil in the front allows it to spin off some power on one side to keep traction on the other. However, a slightly stiffer oil in the back can give you a little more drive to both tires, and when you really pin it, it'll allow that front end or the rear end to come around a little more. So if you're coming into a corner, for say, and you've got it set up to where it's got a little more resistance in the back, and I'm not saying like power into it and lock it down, but just give it a little more resistance, and this is where playing with it comes in. You've got to try one, see how it handles, stiffen it up a little, see how it handles, and when you find the level that suits you, you've got the right one. So here's how this works though. When you get into a corner and you are pushing because the back end is holding traction, that makes it really hard to corner and it's really hard to correct. However, when you stiffen it up a little bit to where when you give it a little more throttle, it'll spin both of them. Then when you start to push, you can get that back end to come around and make that corner and head down the other direction. So with a little stiffer oil in the back, it adds a certain amount of control. Now if you lock it up and pin it, it's going to try and squirrel on you because it's just going to fry them both. Depending on the car, of course. Heavier cars handle that better. Lighter cars, they like to swap ends real easy, so you might want to be real careful how you balance your oils. But light in the front, stiff in the middle, medium in the back. And that's my recommendation for your oils, guys. So hey, you know, get in the comments, let me know what you think, you know, good or bad. You know, if you're happy with your car, you're doing it right. And that's just all there is to it. I'm not here to tell you how to do things. I'm here to help you if you have a question. If you guys think you can help others in the comments, please feel free to go ahead and put the comments down there. And you know, if you guys want to see specific content on the channel, leave that in the comments as well so we know what direction we need to go in future videos. So hey guys, I'm AJ from AJ Jam Studios, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Don't forget that notification bell. That'll keep you informed. So I'm AJ. Until next time, keep bashing, guys.